Okay, it's a Thursday night, time for our Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight, and we got a repeat customer here, Julie Marshner. Hey, Julie, how's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, and Bob and I are really excited about getting you back on. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
It's going fine, John, and I'm excited to have Julie back on again as well because of her most recent race, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. So a lot of people may have read her race report for the inaugural Ironman Alaska event, which was we can't wait to hear more about it. And the race report was really good information, but we're going to dive a little deeper than the race report and try to get a little bit more details because I know there's some people out there who want to know a little bit more about the race and decide whether or not to register for this one. So.
And hopefully we don't scare them away either with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it sounded pretty tough.
I hear you. All right, but before we get going, I'm going to turn it over to Bob to do the official introduction.
All right, thank you, John. I appreciate it, and welcome again, Julie. It's really great to have you back on, and I'm excited about this. For the people who are new, we have a whole lot of new members and a lot of new triathletes in the club. A lot of people don't know Julie. Julie is just an indescribably amazing triathlete. She has done over 75 triathlons. She's done 9, if I have a correct count by now, nine full Ironman and 35 70.3s. I mean, and that in itself is just like huge. But then Julie takes her triathlon adventure one step further. She has done, and I got to read this list because I can't remember the whole thing. Julie has done full Ironman in Canada, Denmark, Sweden, Austria, South Africa, Peru, and Australia. And now we adding on to that list the far land country of Alaska. So she's done triathlons all over the world. So again, thank you so much for being here, Julie. And just to get started, what's with the adventurous spirit and like how does the the triathlon and your world travels come together?
I don't know how it initially came together. I mean, I liked to travel, and then I also like to do races. And so then when I found a way to put them together, it just kind of became like the normal for me. So like I look to find a race in a place that I'd like to go, and then I make a vacation out of it. So I usually do like a side trip while I'm there, if I'm in a far off place, to make the trip worth it.
One thing you're an expert at, and that is, getting ready and packing your bike and taking it to another country through the different ways to get there. And we're going to talk about your challenges, even taking it to Alaska. But John, we might even have to do like a separate segment on how to prepare for races that you're going all over the world and how to pack and all that stuff. So, but thanks for that. And I know that John has got some questions lined up, and he's chomping at the bits to ask you about Alaska. So John, take it away.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yes, having that experience of being able to get ready for a race and all the logistics is critical for a successful race like that. But Alaska had some unique logistics. All right, but let's start with Julie. Let's see the medal.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten it mounted yet, but this is the medal, and I'm pretty sure it's the largest medal of my entire collection. So I mean, you can see like how big it is compared to my hand. It's pretty huge. So.
I love it. That's beautiful. The colors, the shapes, and that is. Do you know the symbol on there? Or is that?
That's what I was wondering, if it's
like
an
eagle.
Yeah.
It's like native art.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And so, getting the medals, it's special. And I love it when they really bring in that local flavor of the event like that. All right, so let's talk about, maybe start with, how did you even decide to choose Alaska as the first year? It wasn't, I mean, there was a Alaska Man before that, but this first year for Ironman. What made you pick that race?
So, I mean, again, like Alaska has been on my list of a place I wanted to go to. So all I need is a race to kind of like draw me in there. So when I heard that they were going to be bringing in Ironman there, I was like, oh, okay, I got to do this. Oh. So I signed up for the race the day that registration opened, and I got my hotel booked. And then I started looking into other stuff, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be a tough race, like to get around Juneau, and then to plan like other parts of the trip, just because of the logistics of getting to Alaska.
So when planning those logistics, where did you start? I mean, because it's in Juneau, right? Am I saying that correctly? Do you know?
Juneau.
Juneau.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So where did you start? Did you start with flights? Did you start with hotel? What did you?
So, I mean, I knew that lodging was going to be an issue because people were saying, I don't know that Ironman can host a race with like 3,000 athletes. The typical Ironman is.
Yeah.
The race, I think they capped registration at 1,200, and only 800 something athletes ended up actually starting the race. So it was a much smaller field. But yeah, like I definitely got in on the hotel first, and then I started looking at flights, and then like rental cars and stuff. And Juneau, the only way that you can get there is by flying or taking a car in on a ferry. Like you cannot actually drive to Juneau from someplace. So, I knew that was probably going to make it even harder, because then how are you going to get all these bikes here? Because a lot of times people will drive to get their bikes to the race, but that really wasn't going to be an option, because even the option to take a ferry, it's like multiple days to get there from Seattle. Then you have to pay like quite a bit of money to take your car on the ferry. So.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that you could not drive there. So there goes taking my trailer to the race.
If you want to pay to take it on a ferry.
Oh, yeah, that would be cheap, taking the car and the trailer.
Oh, that's great. And so there were a lot of stories about bikes not going to make it. And that's, now I understand why, in terms of not being able to drive there, because you're right. Some people would still drive, or, land some to another, city close to it and then drive in.
Yeah.
But that's not an option here.
But like tri-bike transport was an option. But the closest pickup place for me was like 5 hours away. I'd either have to drive to LA or to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to do a round trip to drop it off and then another round trip after the race to pick it up. So that wasn't really an option for me. So I was really kind of committed to flying in with my bike. But then I think it was a week before the race, Alaska Airlines sent out an email to anybody flying into Juneau the week of the race. Hey, just want to let you know that cargo space is limited on our airplanes. And if you're an Ironman athlete trying to get your bike to the race, we suggest finding other options to get your bike there.
No.
Like there are a whole lot of other options to get your bike to Alaska.
So, I mean, people were freaking out. Some people decided to ship their bike there, and that cost like $1,000 to ship your bike to a local bike store, and they would hold it for you. I heard of one person, they sent their wife on a round trip, like 1 day trip. She flew to Juneau from, I think they lived in Idaho. So she flew from Idaho to Juneau, dropped off bikes, turned around and flew back home like a week before the race. Just so that, they didn't have to worry about the backlog of bikes that could possibly build up.
Wow. So
and that was probably the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah.
And a little less stress there as well. So that's what I was going to ask you is, how much did that enter into, I mean, we all have pre-race anxiety, especially, the week leading up. How did that all factor into pre-race anxiety for you?
It definitely upped it a little bit, but like I didn't really have the time or resources to like decide to ship my bike. So I just, I went with the original plan that I was going to try to fly there. I was flying up on Thursday, so I felt like that gave me a couple days, that even if it, say, got stuck in Seattle, like I still had 2 days for it to get there before like the bike cut off. So, and I put an Apple AirTag in my bike case.
Yeah.
Track it so that if it got lost, I could like tell the airline exactly where it was.
That is smart. I've actually started doing that as well. And that's a $25 item you can put in the bag, and it's pretty amazing. You can track it. Okay, so you got the logistics of getting there. You've got a hotel laid out. Talk us through the gear that you were deciding to take, and where were you getting information in terms of what gear to take?
So I didn't realize that Juneau is in, I think they call it like a temperate rainforest. And so it was like the weeks leading up to the race, it became pretty apparent that rain was likely going to be happening on race day. So I had to take into consideration of like wet weather gear. So, I had bought quite a bit of stuff last year to get ready for Ironman California. with that huge storm that they had that ended up canceling the race. So, I packed a lot of wet weather gear. So, I mean, I borrowed a nice raincoat from Ted, a raincoat from Ted. I had like shoe covers. Then I brought like extra transition bags so that I would be able to double bag my stuff within the transition bag that they provided to keep stuff dry.
Julie, I know there was rain, but what was the temperature that accompanied the rain?
So it was in the mid 50s.
Oh,
I would say
gosh,
most
that's
of the
cool.
day. It was cool, but like I was completely comfortable on the bike. Like I felt like I had the right gear on the bike. I had Velo Toes shoe covers,
Mhm.
which are kind of like these rubber shoe covers. But like there was so much rain, like my feet still got soaked, but at least they stayed warm.
Mhm.
And then like when I got out of the swim, I couldn't get my gloves on my hands, and so I was worried that I was going to have cold hands during the bike, but I ended up being fine on that. And then the run, I started out in shorts and a short sleeve shirt, and then grabbed a long sleeve shirt in my special needs bag halfway through. But yeah, it was good there.
That doesn't make for a personal record whenever you're loaded with rain gear. You're not going to be all that fast on the bike. How much did that
Yeah.
affect you?
I don't think so. I don't think the extra gear really affected me that much. Like the raincoat was pretty tight fitting, so it's not like it was blowing out or anything like that.
Oh, cool.
It just took extra time in transition to like get all of the gear on. Yeah.
Things you don't think about.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So you must have had list on list, making sure that you had everything, because it's not like the city has a lot of extra triathlon gear.
Right.
It's not like California or Sacramento, where I know people were running out and buying things, the leading up to the race, but Juneau doesn't have a lot of that. So you must have really tried to plan pretty meticulously.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I made sure I had all the nutrition that I wanted, stuff like that. I wasn't gonna rely on being able to get stuff up there.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. That's sort of a neat undertaking. It's a big adventure. Okay, so now, how soon before the race did you get to Juneau?
So I flew up, I got there about midday on Thursday for a Sunday race. And so the weather, it was beautiful when I landed there on Thursday. And then what they were calling, I can't remember what the term was for it, like an atmospheric river basically moved in on Friday and Saturday before the race. And so it just poured Friday and Saturday. And so, there was a lot of anxiety about that, like whether it was going to stall over Juneau and like it was going to rain like that all day on Sunday. It did rain quite a bit on Sunday, but it was not all day. So
I love it. So you had your California bomb cyclone, and then you go to Alaska and you experience an atmospheric river. I don't know. Just let me know what the next race you're doing, and I'll make sure to.
not sign up.
Yeah, right. Oh,
It almost sounds like you're a rain god, and the rain clouds came and worshipped you for like the entire last couple of months.
that's great. Okay, so you get there Thursday. How did you do course recon, and how much getting to Juneau did you do in terms of recon? Any videos or?
So I used the free trial of Full Gas, which is kind of like it's kind of like an app where you can ride on the actual Ironman course. So I did do once on my bike on my trainer. So I knew I was kind of familiar with like what the train was going to look like and what it was going to be like. And then when I got to Juneau, because I knew that Thursday was probably going to be the only nice day that I was there, I immediately put my bike together, and then I went and rode the run course so that I would be able to see that. And then I had a rental car, and so then I drove the bike course on Friday in the rain.
Julie, go ahead, John.
I was going to say that's a great tip, is to bike the run course and then drive the bike course. That's a great tip. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say the virtual, like Rouvy and Full Gas, those are great to give you the terrain and the hills and everything, but they can't tell how rough the road is. So I understand that was a problem. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so they call it chip seal. And so basically the bike course, it consisted of 2 out and back loops on a glacier highway, which is basically the longest road in Juneau because it's pretty much the only longest road in Juneau. And then 8 of the last 9 miles on that stretch was this chip seal road. And it was really rough pavement. Like there weren't cracks in the road and there weren't like potholes and stuff, but it was just rough pavement and some of it was bumpy. And so it was 8 miles of that on the way out. And then you would turn around and then do another 8 miles then. And you had to do that same thing on the second loop. And so it was a shock on the first loop, and then you're just dreading it for that second loop. You know it's gonna be there. And it almost felt sticky.
Yeah.
And so it just sapped like all the power out of me when I was riding on it.
You almost want to get off and let some air out of your tires to absorb some of that. Tires too hard on chip seal and it just vibrates like crazy and it sucks your power. Yeah.
I had already underinflated my tires because of the wet roads, because they had suggested that we do that. So I had my PSI, usually I ride it like 90 or 95, and I had it down around 80 to 85.
Well, yeah. Any lower and you risk pinch flatten.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's great. Okay, so then how about pre-race swim practice? Did you get in the water?
I did swim on Friday. They didn't have the course set up, but there was, kind of some buoys along the shore that you could swim. And so the water temperature, so it was advertised to be 65 degrees swim. But when I swam it on Friday, I think it was like 57.8.
That's cold.
That's cold.
And I guess when Ironman had put up on the website that it was going to be a 65-degree swim, all the locals were like, it's not going to be 65 degrees. You'll be lucky if it's 60 degrees.
Huh.
You had people being like, oh, 65 degrees. I'm going to swim in a sleeveless sweatsuit, talking about that before the race. And I mean, so I did the practice swim 57.8 and my face hurts the first couple 100 yards. My hands didn't go numb then. But then race morning, I think the temperature ended up going down to 56 degrees, I think is what it was. And so they ended up cutting the swim in half.
Wow.
So 15 minutes before we were supposed to start, they announced, the water is too cold, so we're only going to have you do 1 loop instead of 2 loops. And then they also delayed the start another 30 minutes because of that.
Anything under 60 degrees is cold. So
it hurts.
Did you do a neoprene cap or just go with the silicone cap or the latex cap even?
So I had this light, they call it, I don't know what they call it, like a cold water cap. It's not really neoprene, but it's definitely not like silicone or latex.
Right.
So I had a silicone on the bottom, then I had that cold water cap, and then I had the latex race cap on top of that. And then I had neoprene booties on my feet in addition to my wetsuit.
That's smart. All right. So when they announced that they were going to shorten the swim, what did that do to you in terms of what you were thinking about for race day? Did you just say, okay, no big deal, or was it more stressful, or what was the announcement? What did it bring?
Was it a relief?
No, I was actually a little disappointed because the swim is my favorite and it's the best of my 3. So it's, I always look forward to it. So it's kind of a disadvantage to me when they cut it in half. But I will say in the end, I'm glad that they cut it in half, because when just doing the 1.2 miles, I lost feeling in my fingers at the end of the swim. And so I couldn't hold my fingers together to kind of paddle through the water. Instead, I just laid out and just kind of flying through the water the last couple 100 yards because I lost feeling in my fingers.
Oh, wow. And that certainly makes it hard to go from that to then biking.
Yeah.
So what was the pre-race chatter like in terms of weather? Was it increasing anxiety, or was it just something you were expecting this and you're just going to roll with it?
I grew to expect it, and so I decided that I was just going to roll with it.
No.
I felt like I had the right gear, and then I felt like I had packed my stuff properly, that it would be dry when I put it on, and it was.
Oh, good for you.
That's great. Well, the pictures of transition looked beautiful, and so you got it. So let's go through the race. So the swim, other than it being super cold, anything else on the swim?
So the water is really dark. It's like really dark brown color, and it's because of tannins in the area. And so you couldn't really see bodies around you, and so there was a lot more colliding with people than I was used to. So you would come up on someone and I would maybe see a bright pink stripe on a wetsuit, but you couldn't see hands and feet. So like if someone had neoprene booties on, like black, you aren't going to be able to see it in the water or anything like that. So I did get tangled up a couple times because of that, because you just couldn't see anyone unless you were looking for them above water.
Interesting. I would have thought the water would have been clearer. So that's really good to know, is that it's not clear at all.
It's not, it's spring fed. It's not like glacial water.
And what body of water was this?
It's a lake. It's Auk Lake, Auke. So.
Okay.
All right. So then you get out, you couldn't feel your hands. Walk us through transition. What was that like?
So the transition, the run up from the swim up to the changing tent is probably close to a half a mile.
Oh, wow.
There's zigzagging up the sidewalk. It was carpeted most of the way, but probably the last third of it wasn't. And so it really pounded on my feet. I was glad that I had neoprene booties on.
Yeah.
I think it would have been pretty rough if you just had bare feet. And then they had wetsuit strippers maybe a quarter of the way up. So you take wetsuit off.
What's interesting is your Alaska Ironman actually got you ready for the Boulder Beach sprint to come out of the water and run for a quarter mile up the transition.
No doubt. Our transitions are long now, but cold feet. You're right. The neoprene booties, that certainly makes sense, because if your feet are cold and trying to run half mile, that's not easy
on concrete.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the bike. Let's. So no issues getting your gear switched over with the hands, or was it even hard to even get your shoes on?
It was difficult, especially to get those Velo toes booties, because they fit so tightly on your feet. Like you really have got to be able to grip them hard. I don't know that I would try it in a race again, because it was so hard. Probably better, like if you're just going out for a ride and you have the time to put those on, but trying to put them on during a race was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
And Julie, those go on the outside of your shoes or under the shoes? They're over the shoes, right?
They go on the outside, but it's really weird the way that you have to put them on. You have to like stick your shoe through one of the holes and like pull it up to your ankle. And then you have to pull it back down over the toe of your shoe. So it's a lot of pulling. I actually ended up ripping one of them trying to pull it up on my foot. So it was like flapping around the entire bike ride.
Especially with hands that are so cold they don't work.
Yeah.
All right, so walk us through the bike then. How'd you start off? Was it cold right away, or were you able to, with the right clothing, feel pretty comfortable starting?
I was pretty comfortable, and then it started raining. So it actually didn't rain most of the morning, which was nice to not have to like stand around it in the rain, especially when they delayed the start. But it did start raining pretty soon after we started the bike. And so then it was just like, okay, I'm just going to be wet the rest of the day.
And you already had your rain gear on. You didn't have to. You didn't carry it with you and put it on.
No, I just put it on. Like the coat that I borrowed is really nice, and so it's breathable. So I wasn't too worried about overheating with it. And I mean, it was cool, so it was really the perfect temperature to be wearing that jacket.
Very good.
And so you felt pretty comfortable on the bike. I mean, you had a real nice bike ride from looking at the splits and what have you. That seemed to go really well. Yeah.
So there's like 2 turns at the beginning of the course, and then it's like straight out on that road for probably like 25 miles maybe. Then you turn around and come back. And so, there's like curves in the road, but no turns. And then it's just kind of like gentle rolling hills. Like there's no steep climbs, no, descents where I was really nervous with the wet road to be descending. Like I felt comfortable.
And so how much, what's the scenery like? Do you get caught up in looking at the scenery, or are you able to take in that?
No, I mean, I was looking at it. So I think maybe because of the rain, there were a bunch of waterfalls on the side of the road.
Oh, how cool.
Like not like huge waterfalls that you could necessarily see. Like sometimes they were covered up by vegetation, but it was just cool as you were riding by that you would hear like this rush of water and calming. And then you go over a couple of rivers. And there were like all these down logs in the river because the water level was so high. Then like there are times when you're like pretty close to the bay. And so you can look out and see like mountains on the other side of the bay. saw bald eagles flying.
Oh,
So pretty cool.
that is. You must have just been kicking yourself out here and racing in Alaska. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's so lush and green because of all the rain. So it's really
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so now you come in off the bike, and now you're really dealing with the rain at that point.
Yeah, so it wasn't raining when I finished the bike, but by the time I got out of the change tent, it started to rain.
Oh, okay.
So as I was walking out, they were like, "Get ready!" It started.
Gear choice for the run then.
What's that?
What was your gear choice for the run?
So I just went with tri-shorts and a short sleeve shirt to start with, and then I had a hat.
Mhm.
And then I ended up getting a long sleeve shirt in my special needs bags halfway through.
Got it.
Then I also had a disposable poncho that I put in my pocket, but I never ended up getting it out.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, that was smart. That was a real good preparation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thoughtful.
Yeah.
All right, talk us through the run. How'd that go? What was the course like?
I don't usually say this, but I actually enjoyed the run for this
Yeah.
race. So there are a couple hills, like it's a 2-loop course. And so there are a couple hills in the first half, and then the second half is probably more flat. And then there's a couple short hills like towards the finish of each of the loop. But yeah, so it rained a little bit at the beginning. I don't really remember it raining much on the first loop, but then when I started out on the second loop, it just absolutely downpoured for like 2 miles. And so I was just soaked. Like water was spilling off of the bill of my hat. I had on and just soaked from head to toe. Like there was no from it.
Talk about dealing with the elements. That's pretty cool that you were able to adapt.
Yeah, but I mean, even with that, like I'll pick that kind of weather over a hot day race anytime. Like it was kind of fun, running. Again, like there were some waterfalls and like creeks that we ran by on the course. It was really pretty. In the first loop, you can see a glacier at some point off in the distance. So it was really.
We don't have a whole lot of those here, and it's pretty cool to see. Yeah, all the stuff that you don't realize how cool it is.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so now you're coming down the finish line chute. What was that like?
There were a lot of people there. Yeah, it was really cool to finish. I was happy with my race, so like I was really happy at the finish.
Oh, that's great. Now you did a fantastic job, and we were tracking you, and it's a lot of fun. And just thinking of the experiences that you must have been having, that's really neat. Okay, but now your post race, raining, cold. What's that like at that point?
It was definitely cold and raining, so I got to the athlete food tent pretty quickly from there, just to kind of hide out from the rain. And they had a lot of hot food in there. They had like beef stew and vegan chili and pizza, and then they had chicken broth, that I was still drinking after drinking it on the course, just to stay warm.
That's great. Okay, I'm curious. How about some gear that you wish you had during the race? Anything?
Or were you completely prepared and had everything you needed?
I really felt like I was prepared. I think had I known that the swim was possibly going to be under 60 degrees, I may have looked into getting a thermal wetsuit. I just have a regular wetsuit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was comfortable like temperature wise, and then I just kind of accepted the fact that I was probably going to be wet all day.
Can I ask you, Julie, how thick is your wetsuit? Is it 3 or 5?
I'm not really sure. It's a Hoove wetsuit, so
It's
variable panels. You got some 3s and some 5s.
So I'm curious. This race overall was very unique. From getting there and all that. Looking back, what was the most unique part of the race, or maybe the most memorable part?
I think just the scenery around you while you're racing. Like I tried to make a point to like not be so focused on the bike that like I wasn't looking around, at the scenery I was going by, like the views that you saw on the run, of the glacier and of the surrounding mountains. At one point you're going on this I usually call it kind of like a hiking trail through this forest. And so you've got like dense, dense trees all around you. It's just really pretty. So.
Did you ever think of bears?
I did, because I actually saw a bear when I was driving the bike course. I didn't see any on race day. I did hear that some other people did. And then when you're going through that forest, it seems like this would be a really good place.
If I was a bear, I'd want to live here.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so now if someone's sitting on the fence whether or not to sign up for Ironman Alaska, what would you say to them?
I mean, if you're flexible and like looking for an adventure, like I would definitely do it.
Mhm.
If you're willing to like endure the logistics and stuff that it takes to go there, like I thought the course was great. I really enjoyed the course, the terrain, and then you just can't beat the views up there.
Mm. No, I love it.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, and I love that. If you are flexible, and I think that is doing a race like this, you do need to be able to adjust, because it's a small city. It's a logistic. It takes a lot of planning to get there. So I think that's a really great point. If you have that mindset, then it could be the right race for you. All right, and all the post-race stuff you did.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, so I ended up finding a group tour with a company called Backroads.
Yeah.
And so the tour started out of Anchorage. And so I flew up to Anchorage 2 days after the race.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing I will say about Alaska Airlines is that when you fly within the state, you can have like 3 bags checked free.
Mm-hmm.
So like I didn't have to pay to drag my bike up to Anchorage.
Oh, wow.
I stored it in luggage storage at the airport in Anchorage while I went on the tour. And so this tour, we went all around the Kenai Peninsula and did hiking, biking, and kayaking.
Wow. Yeah, we were keeping up with your pictures. That was fantastic. All right, so I got to ask, did you see a sunset?
I don't think I did, because I never stayed at 10 o'clock.
Was it daylight almost the whole time?
So sunrise was probably like 4:15, 4:30.
Okay.
And then the sun, like darkness, was probably after 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah,
and then I
that's a
never
long
really
day.
saw the sun much when I was up there, because it rained most of the time, even when I was on my tour, like overcast or raining. So.
Hey, Julie, getting back to whether or not, how, to help someone decide whether they're going to do this or not. Obviously your experience helped out a little bit. How much experience do you think you should have before you can do a race like this? I mean, you probably don't want to do this as your first triathlon, your first Ironman.
So I think that there were like 200 first-time Ironman triathletes.
Really?
Yeah. But I would say that they seem to be like an adventurous bunch. Like they picked this race because they wanted an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they got it.
But I mean, the course is not necessarily difficult. Like you just have to be ready to, endure the conditions. And I think if you were able to do something like Tri Bike Transport, where they would take your bike up there and they'll even take a gear bag for you. They'll take it there and then you could just dump it after the race and they'll take care of getting it home for you. If you're worried about flying with your bike, like that's an option too. So.
Good advice.
That's great. Julia, I said we'd keep you 30 minutes and we're already going long. And I'll tell you what, this is such a fabulous experience, just to go to Alaska is an experience, but then to add in an Ironman and a very challenging Ironman at that, from the cold water to the weather conditions, that is really fantastic. And now you've experienced a bomb cyclone, an atmospheric river, and I can't wait to hear what the next weather phenomenon that you're going to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can picture you going over to Saudi Arabia and racing through a sandstorm or something. It's going to be epic again.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you, Julie. Thanks for the details. And I know if people have more questions, post them. And I know Julie would be glad to answer them because it is sort of neat doing that first one and having that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on, and congratulations again. It's just an amazing story.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night.